welcome to Genevieve. And she's at the grain store having last night done a reading from Patsy Smith's autobiography, Hear the Train Blow. The relevance of that here is that Patsy Smith lived in G.R.A.I.N, which is an adjacent area to an adjacent small town to Nathalia, and spent a lot of her autobiography speaking about her time here. So Genevieve, what was it that touched you about this story?
It was the personal way, I suppose, it was told. She's having to stretch back to when she was 8 to 12 and seemed to have a remarkably clear memory of those times. And what was touching was, I suppose, the kind of independence and toughness that she exposed about herself, that because she was in a family that moved mostly every 2 years, so she had to create new friends every 2 years. It's not as though life was easy then, because it was around the time of the Great Depression. So she's in a poor family, she's moving every 2 years, and she's having to learn to be pretty independent and pretty tough in a tough country world. And it's not a world that really most Australians, because we're a city-dwelling people, would ever have been exposed to. But she tells it in such an engaging, storytelling way. And I found it very moving, some of her struggles in it, but also the joy she found about being in the country and having to live in a real community sense, the way the communities pulled together whenever there was a hardship or something to celebrate, how everybody, no matter whether they liked each other or not, all got together and would make something work, make a celebration work, or make something as sad as a funeral or a fire or a flood or a drought. They'd all pull together, and it's something you don't experience. Certainly, I've come from living in the city most of my life, until you come out to the country, to rural areas, and then that's when you really understand what community is. And this book is a wonderful illustration of community life, and also when it was completely different in terms of technology than it is now.
The state of the arts in the bush, because 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, the idea of the arts in the bush was that a regional gallery is established and they have a collection and people get to see that. But it wasn't so much that artists were of any note were living in the bush and practicing there and making careers and all the rest. I think that when I know now that you live in a small town, smaller than Nathalia even, right? Which is very small.
It's about the size of G.R.A.I.N.
Yeah, size of G.R.A.I.N, yeah. And also recognizing that a lot of our historical performers, writers, musicians, artists did come from small towns as well. So I've been heartened by the state of the arts, so to speak, in the bush. What's your experience?
Yeah, I'm such an expert now, because I've spent 3 years in the country.
Absolutely. And you've been here.
Well, the thing is, my historical experience of it is that I have, toured a lot of Australia, been fortunate enough to tour with and always going to the small country towns was the best fun. It wasn't always the most convenient fun in terms of their facilities that you'd be performing in. Yeah. But you get such a welcome from the audience, and you're asked to go at the end of the performance, have a cup of tea with them, and when you come to the city, you're like, oh, I've done the performance, isn't that enough? Can I just go home? Can I go to bed? I'll be on the road tomorrow. Yeah. But oddly enough, in fact, it was never a chore once you got out there, because people were engaged by the work that you did, because they appreciated the work that you did, whether they liked the show or not, and they would tell you too, which is nice. They'd tell you to your face. Didn't work for me, or I thought that was a bit, but they were still engaged by it, as opposed to the kind of cynicism you get in the city, where people are kind of overwhelmed really with choice and product for entertainment. So in a sense, in the bush, as an outsider coming to rural places. Thank you for the support of the regional arts departments in each state and federally. And goodness for them. It's a really terrific experience as a performer from the outside. Now, living inside it is fun too, because I actually realised that the closest large art centre to me is G.R.A.I.N, Geelong. There's a smaller one at Colac. Because they effectively are houses that bring in work, they get to pick some of the cream of the stuff that's going around Australia that you actually don't even see in the major cities, because it comes from all around Australia. There's some fantastic work being done. So in that sense, the regional arts and the regional arts centres do a fabulous job of exposing people in rural and regional areas to a wider variety of work, in fact, made by Australians than people in cities do. You probably get maybe more local music in the cities, but then again, that's countered by the fact in regional areas, almost someone plays a guitar or plays something and usually gets locally supported, but the variety of local music's different. So in one way, I actually think it's very healthy here. And I also think, we think in the city that there's not much stuff happening in the bush. I suspect on a creative level, because of the sort of work that's happening at the grain store, because of the work of Regional Arts Victoria, the creativity that is encouraged in the bush, I think there's more people actually experiencing the arts and in a more valuable, quality way than you necessarily get in the city, frankly. I mean, my neighbours where I lived for most of my life in Melbourne, I don't know if they ever went to the theatre. They knew I worked in the theatre. They might watch something that I was in telly or film, but they wouldn't go to the theatre. So, in a sense here, when you're not spoiled by choice, you make use of what's available. So it's eaten up. The arts are eaten up when you come to it, and it's great. I think it's fantastic for us as artists, but also as being a recipient of that, living in the bush and going to see stuff that I otherwise wouldn't have got the chance to see if I'd stayed in Melbourne, ironically.
Yeah.
That's
well,
great.
Eaten up, as a phrase you use, as was your performance last night by the community. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.